Hello, everybody. My name is Stijn. I'm from the company called VIKTOR, and I'm the CPO at the company, so the Chief Product Officer and one of the co-founders. And today I will be talking about how you can rapidly create custom web apps using Python and APS. But what I want to start with first is actually the challenge that we are facing as an industry at the moment. So what you see is that we are, in our opinion at least, facing enormous challenges in our industry. First of all, there's a lot that needs to be built in the coming years. So if you look only in Europe, already in the coming 10 years, the estimation is that 25 million houses need to be built. So that's an enormous amount. If you also look at the infrastructure, which is of course quite logical, the investments that need to be done in infrastructure are also enormous, and that's both, of course, for maintenance of existing infrastructure as well as new infrastructure that needs to be built. If you then look at the impact of our industry and looking at the CO2 emissions per industry, then you also see that the building construction and operations industry has a very big factor in these emissions. And of course, as probably everybody knows, that we have quite an ambitious goal as Europe to become climate neutral in 2050. So another challenge that we face is basically experienced people. So if you look at, if we talk to our customers, we see that around 80% of the AEC firms are struggling to find skilled professionals. And that's, let's say, all over the board. So engineers, but also people at the workplace. So if you summarize this, basically, we need to build a lot. We have clear restrictions as well in terms of emissions that we have, and of course also restrictions in terms of personnel. So I think we can summarize it really easily, and I think that's very well in line with this conference, is that we need to work smarter. And if you look at our industry, and I think a lot of people are aware of these kind of figures, if you look at the productivity growth in our industry and also the digitization, we are not doing very well compared to other industries. So you see actually that the productivity is decreasing in the industry, and there's a clear correlation with digitization and productivity growth. So what we believe, and I think everybody here in this audience agrees, is that there's really a big need for our industry to start digitizing in a far more rapid pace than we have been doing over the last years. And that's actually why we founded VIKTOR, because our mission is that we want to enable all engineers to be able to automate their workflows by creating apps fast and share them easily. Because what we see basically in the industry is that what's very typical, and that also has to do with this challenge of the digitization, projects are unique. So every time you have another situation, or often you have another situation, and that's why automation and digitization is challenging, of course. So what we believe is that with our platform, we enable engineers to easily build applications as fast as possible to automate their work on specific projects. So what is then our platform? Well, mainly it consists of three main pillars. The first one is that you can create these applications. And you can create these applications purely based on Python, which is of course quite an accessible programming language. And next to that, that's also a very important part, is of course, if you look at typical workflows in our industry, the existing engineering software plays a very important part. So thinking about, of course, modeling software like Revit, but also looking at analysis software, for example, finite element analysis. And so with our platform, you can easily integrate these different software packages. And then if you have then developed an app, integrated software, with our platform, you can easily distribute it. So you can basically publish an app and distribute it with your colleagues in a secure environment. How this exactly works, I will show later. But to show the end result basically, so how such an app looks like, I would like to show a demo. And this is an app which is developed by Vinci, a very big French contractor. And they have built an application on our platform for crane foundations. So what you will see in this video, you will see the interface of the app. And basically what they have did, of course, a crane foundation is a relatively simple structure, but of course it consists of multiple calculation steps. So first of all, what they can do is they can give all the input. And then as you can see in the web interface, immediately you can see the 3D model. You can also define the reinforcement, and also immediately you can see that. And then on the back, this is all generated by integration. So all kinds of different modeling. So in this case, you can also see the drawings, which are generated with an integration with Revit. And also the full calculation report is automatically generated. So this is really a typical application, and where you have this multidisciplinary flow, and from a central app, everything is integrated. And the impact that this application has is that literally what usually took them weeks to design and engineer such a structure, they can now do in minutes. So I think the big question is, why is this not common practice on every project? Because if you look at, also, for example, I think if you go back to presentations of DEF CON as well, you see that there's a lot of these kind of very innovative new ways of working where, like the app I just showed, the productivity and the way of working is drastically improved. But what we still see is that this is not common practice on every project. And the reason for this has to do with a few things. So one thing is what we see has to do with skills. So what is the most used automation tool by engineers at the moment? That's Excel. So what you see is that often engineers use Excel basically to automate their work, right? So you could say that if you just build an Excel sheet, it's sort of a parametric design tool. But what you also see is that the level of automation or digitization you can reach with this has definitely limits. And of course you can start to use VBA and those kind of things, but you definitely hit limits. While what we often see is that at some point when engineers start programming, basically to go further in this automation process. So then people start to use Python or C#, and then great tools like APS. And with that, the possibilities become endless because often more and more software packages have APIs. So in that way, you can really fully integrate such a process. But also nowadays, of course, using programming, you can also use large language models, etc. So in that case, the possibilities are really big. However, there's not a lot of people go through this phase. So what you see is, of course, this period where when you start to learn something new and you think, hey, maybe I can learn programming. In the beginning, you are not as efficient or effective in that as you are with the tools you know. So what we see is that only quite a small percentage of the engineers, less than 5%, know how to code. And yeah, what we believe in is that this actually limits widespread adoption of tools like APS and VIKTOR as well. So that's one important thing. That's the skills. Another one, that's the project work. So of course, typically in our industry is that you have big projects, big risks, strict deadlines. So, and what I really like about this graph is I think it visualizes well what's happening. So you have, let's say, the geek, so a person who really likes to automate and do some coding, and then you have a person who doesn't. Basically, they start on a task, and what then typically happens at some point, let's say there's repetitive work. The geek, gets annoyed and starts to automate and start writing scripts, etc. But in that time, actually, the person who's just doing the work, let's say the normal way, keeps making progress, while actually when you start programming at that moment, you are just actually not making more progress because you're automating your work until you of course run the script. But in this phase, there's of course often a deadline present. So and automation is often still really seen as something which is risky and another way of working. And with a project a deadline approaching, it's really logical that people tend to just do it the way they are normally used to doing it. And then, of course, you hope that at some point the script is run and before the deadline, and you actually make an advantage out of it. But when it takes a lot of time to automate, this is, of course, quite a big challenge in this project and deadline-oriented business. So knowing these things, so first of all, skills and also the time, we have been developing something new very recently. And this is actually making use of large language models because, of course, large language models is a very big development. And what we believe in is this can actually help a lot with both. So first of all, that using large language models, it's a lot quicker to develop apps. And next to that also it can help you get through that learning phase. So what's I think a very interesting thing to see is that if you look at the usage of Stack Overflow, for example, since the ChatGPT, etc., were launched, this usage is going down really drastically. And that means actually that people, instead of getting their info from Stack Overflow or something, they are learning just by using large language models. So let me just show you then how this looks like. So this is our app builder. And as I said, it's very new, and it basically uses the same principle as we had with VIKTOR already. So you can build apps based on Python web applications. But the big change that we made with this new development is that it's fully in the browser. So while the normal, let's say the old way of developing VIKTOR apps, you had your code locally and then your app in the browser, but now it's fully in the browser, so you don't need to install anything. So also when you never have worked with Python and you don't know how to install, you can just run it immediately. And it has an AI assistant. So let's just start with, taking something, let's say you don't know what to prompt. Let's just ask one of the proposals. The prompt now is create an app that shows visualizations of the maximum bending moment and the shear force for a simply supported beam. So what it's now doing is that it will generate the VIKTOR app code for this, which is a Python code, and it uses in this case also the Claude model as the basis for this, but then we use this in combination with the logic of VIKTOR to generate this app. So what you will see at first is that it nicely explains you what it's doing. So as you can see over here, it now generated this app, and this is actually a working app. So if I change a parameter over here, then you will also see that this is updating. So the calculation is updating, and actually this graph is updating as well. It explains what it has done, and also created the shear force diagram over here. So what's now behind this, and that's actually then what I refer to as the VIKTOR code. So what you see over here, we have a VIKTOR Python package, so which you can see over here. And this is actually the code that it generated. So what you see over here, that first of all, it created these two input fields. So these are the fields that you can see here on the left-hand side. And next to that, it created the logic. So what you see is that here you can just see what it generated. So it calculates the maximum bending moment based on a Python function it created. And here you can just see all the logic which is there. And the nice thing is now is that I can also immediately start adapting it. So I can do that in two ways, either by prompting or doing it by myself. So let's say that, for example, I also would like to calculate the displacement. So then based on this prompt, it adds that calculation as well. And it will add another view. So as you can see, it's generating these changes again. And well, actually, that's always with live demos, of course, a challenge. It can also generate an error. But that's actually good, because how can you now solve these errors? So first of all, it will show you what changes has been made. So it added two parameters to be able to do that calculation. And then next to that, it also added these calculations. But now, apparently, it's missing two positional arguments. Yeah, so apparently it didn't get this right in one go, which can of course happen. We all know that these large language models are not perfect yet. But actually what we can do is we can just, the easy way, you can of course dive into the Python code yourself, but also you can use the large language model to fix this. And then it will try to fix it automatically. I think it just forgot, so this is probably the place where it forgot to edit. So let's see if the large language model gets this as well. So it says, change is saved. Let's go back to the preview. I'd like to accept the changes. As you can see, it now solved the issue. So this is basically how this works. And what you can do as well is that you can also, for example, add parameters as well. Maybe at some point you would like to add height. And then in this way, you could also manually make a change where you say, okay, I want to add the height as well of a profile with a certain default value of 1. And if I now save this, you will see that it added this parameter. So in this case, you can really quickly develop these kind of apps. So one other example that I would like to show, so let me just start with a new chat, is something I think which relates a bit more towards modeling. So let's say that I would like to make an IFC viewer web application. So can you create an app in which I can upload an IFC and visualize it? So I think what's good to mention is that in VIKTOR, we have all kinds of building blocks available. And because of these building blocks that we have available, the amount of code that you need is relatively little. So now it created this app. Let's see if it works. I will just upload an IFC file. And hopefully did it correctly. Yeah, what you can see over here is that we just have this nice IFC viewer generated. The code behind it is this. And as you can see, this is very little code. And the reason for this is that we have all kinds of these building blocks available. So first of all, you just have this, this file field available with which you can upload a certain file. And then we have an IFC viewer available in our documentation. And based on that, you can really quickly, and just make such an app. So yeah, hopefully this explains how we solve this issue, right? With this this app builder, we make it for people easy to start, but also still quick, because we all have these building blocks to make these kind of applications. And once you have then developed this application, you can just publish the app. And then when you start publishing, then it will immediately just publish the app, and then you can immediately make it available and people can start using it as well. All right, so then that's the introduction of the app builder. But what I would like to show next is how you can also create apps powered by APS. Because we think that APS, it's a very powerful development. However, what we also notice is that, for example, at our customers, typically people, engineers have maybe are not full stack developers, but they have Python knowledge. And what we have been working on is to make it actually also as easy as possible for those people to start to use APS in some way. And this is a sample app. So this is also quite a simple example. And what you see over here, this is an app with which I can convert a Revit file to an IFC file. So I can just create this object. And what I can now do in this app, I can upload a Revit model. And then if I hit this button, it will use APS to convert the model. So at the end, it uses the design automation APIs, and it, with which you can do this, and then I can load this model. And this is then actually how this works in this app. So let me just show you the code related to this, because I think that's the most interesting thing, because of course doing such a conversion, I think that's not the most, let's say, innovative. But what we do think is that, we make it really easy to do this. And this is actually all the code which is required for this app. So as you can see over here, let me just run through. Well, first of all, we have again the input parameters. So where you can upload the model and the action button that you see. And then, what the function which is behind the button. What it's first of all doing is that it gets an access token based on your client ID and your client secret that you need, of course. And then, so what we basically did is we have created sort of a small Python wrapper with generic functions with which you can then, we make it, as easy as possible actually to do this. So for example, we created the function to convert a Revit file to IFC. At the end, it's just using all the endpoints provided. But because of this, it's just very easy. You put in your access token and your Revit file, and the result will be an IFC model, which you can then again, in this case, we have also a storage possibility. So the IFC model, which is retrieved, is then stored on the storage, and then in the view, it loads this model. So what of course, it's good to note here is that this restricts in some way the possibilities, because I think a very strong point of APS is you have all these possibilities to do so. But what we believe in is by making specific functions available, we can make it, for specific cases, really easy to implement. So really, let's say a low-code layer around this, so that our customers again, or the people who use VIKTOR, can then in that way easily use this. This is, by the way, also will be just available, this module open source. So also you can use these kind of functions outside of VIKTOR as well. All right. So so in our vision, as you can see, is we want to make it as easy as possible to make these components. What we see is then the next step, once you have created these components, which can be, for example, a conversion, or some analysis or an integration, that after that you can integrate that into a workflow. So that's already possible to do that in a code way. So as I showed with the first video of the crane foundation, so basically you can take all these parts and then make a bigger app out of this to automate such a whole workflow. But another thing that I would like to show, and that's something that we are working on at the moment, but it's really more like visionary. So what we are working towards is to have a no-code way to build these workflows. And how that will look like, roughly, because this is still quite early on, is that that you will be able to to drag and drop these components. So those are the apps that you have been made, and then in the no-code way connect that and then run this full model. I can already show you, because we have been working on this first. This is really the first prototype, but this is how it will roughly work. So you have different apps that are available. So for example, the location picker. You can then add this on this canvas. And then, for example, next to that, I have a building configurator. And let's say a building preview. So then in this building configurator is then, for example, just a parametric, a parametric app with which you can configure a building. The location picker shows the location. Then you can have an app with a preview. And then, for example, at the end, you would like to generate a report, which you can then add again in this flow. And then once you then have this flow, you can run it, and it basically goes through all these apps and generates this report. So as you can see, this is not working yet. So this is something that we are working on at the moment, but it's something that I really like to show because I think this really shows well what we are working towards. And of course, I would be very interested to see as well what you think about this. Then last thing of this presentation that I would like to show is more of an agentic workflow. So next to being able to use large language models to generate apps, we also believe that that it can be really powerful to have more agentic workflows. Also that you basically have an app in which you can prompt, and then the app doesn't generate the code, but it actually uses the tools. So to give an example of this one, this app has been created by Anande. He wrote a really nice blog about it, so I can really recommend to read it. And this is actually what it does. So what you can do with this app is, first of all, you can upload an image of a certain structure. So it can actually just be a drawing, for example. And what it then first does, it uses a large language model also with image, which converts this image into actually data. So what you see over here, this is actually really converted to data and a drawing of this trust structure. Then you can say, okay, I would like to analyze this. What it then does is that it uses actually on the background a tool which can do these kind of calculations. So it's not, let's say, it uses really an exact tool. So I think that's really good to notice. And what we see in our vision is that often you can have a workflow with some parts doing by large language model, but also that it really uses deterministic tools with logic in there. But the way how you can then communicate with this is just via chat. So in this case, like as you would ask an engineer, okay, can you just find, for example, the smallest profile with which this structure is sufficiently strong. So in this way, we basically at the end you use a combination of large language models, but also with really just the hardcore engineering logic. And we really believe that this is this can really benefit our industry a lot, making these kind of agentic workflows. And that's for us really important to support with our platform, that you can create these kind of workflows as easy as possible. So that's why we have features like that you can easily add a chat field, that you can easily integrate. We're now also working on that you can use MCP easily to integrate. So that's basically we are providing all the building blocks for you to be able to make these kind of applications. All right, so that's actually the end of my presentation. So I'd really like to thank you for watching this, and I'm really we are really excited about the future and these new technologies coming up. And so if you are also interested in these things, I would really like to connect with you. So you can find me on LinkedIn. So this is my name. I would really like to connect and hear from you what you think about these developments, and also just see where we go, because I really believe that we should really do this together, and that's where we want to go. So thank you.